Good morning. How are you?
I can't complain. Just sitting outside reading a book,
Nice.
enjoying the peacefulness before everybody comes out here and bothers me.
Isn't that always the way? You find
Yep.
a quiet spot and then everyone comes to bug you.
Everyone. I'm thinking they don't realize I'm out here yet.
That's entirely possible.
It's beautiful in your background. Where are you?
So I'm actually at my farm. I was hoping to be in my studio by now, but that's not what happened today. So I was like, screw it, we're gonna do this outside.
Awesome. Do we need anything?
No, so most everybody that had commented wanted like hips and spine stuff, and honestly, like that's really hard to get to with your hands. So when you do self massage for that area, you can do it over your clothes because most of it you're going to be just kind of using the ground to get into those like nooks and crannies. So yes, in theory, no, you're not going to need anything except.
Okay.
If you happen to be on a really like if you're on concrete, if you're on or like a wood floor, you're probably gonna want a mat. That's probably, I mean, if you're on grass, fine. But yeah, if the flooring that's underneath of you is really hard, then that might not feel so great.
Torie, can we start with the allergy thing?
Oh yeah, we can do that.
I just like it as a starter because I feel like everybody's got allergies, or just me for sure has allergies right now. So bad.
That's so funny. Yeah, we could do that. If we're gonna start with the allergy thing, you don't have to use coconut oil when you do it, but you can use coconut oil when you do it. I don't have any with me, so I won't use it when I do it, but just make sure you wash your face afterwards, because if you're like, even if I use coconut oil, I'll steam my face afterwards just because it'll irritate it if you leave it on too long.
Mm-hmm.
How you guys doing?
I'm jealous of you guys both. The sunshine. It's like summer has been super slow here in Washington. We normally have like warm, like pretty hot summers, but not like Maryland. But it's like 50 degrees. Today it's 50 and cloudy.
That is not okay.
No, it's not been summer.
That is the fall.
Yeah. And I'm like down with that in the fall and the spring, but like I'm ready for some sun and some heat.
Understandable. I'm just happy the bugs have finally like dissipated. We had like those biting flies that come out usually like around Mother's Day. They've been really, really aggressive at the farm, and so I haven't been able to play outside in a while. And then for some reason it rained really hard the day before yesterday, and it was like they all died because they're not here anymore.
Atika, where did you grow up? I know where you live now. I know you're near like Merritt, but where are you from?
Here, DC.
I'm from Salisbury.
Get out.
Yeah, I grew up in Salisbury.
So is your whole family still in Maryland and you're all the way in Washington State?
Except for my mom. Yeah, and she came out here like a year ago. But my brother lives in Baltimore. He just moved to Annapolis. My sister and her wife live in Philly.
Dang. So at least that means you'll be back to the East Coast for
Yes.
visits.
Oh, heck yeah, she'll be back.
Yes, there's always reasons to come back. So when I lived in Southern Maryland, it was funny because it was like I had kind of moved back home, but it was like the furthest possible way to live to the Eastern Shore, because you had to go up and then down and over.
Yeah.
And I could literally see Chrisfield from, the base in Maryland, and you have to go all the way around. But yeah, I'm from there.
That is crazy.
Yep.
So there's no humidity in Washington State?
Barely any. And
That's
so
amazing.
It's really nice. I mean, the reason this is such a nice place to live is because of the summertime, because it's not too hot and it's like 80 degrees and sunny and beautiful, but it's not huge. Most people don't have air conditioning here.
Woo.
And for 1 week out of the summer, everybody's like, oh, it's so hot. And it's like 90 degrees and no humidity for 1 week. And they all like freak out. And I'm just like, y'all don't even know.
Don't even know. come over here. 80 will feel like 115.
Yeah.
That's like the year I lived up in Vermont. That was pretty much everybody was like, "Oh my God, the summer is horrible," and I was like, "No, it's not."
We didn't have AC growing up. My mom used to take us to the library because all summer we would go to the library and the mall because it was so hot. Well, Torie, why don't we go ahead and get started?
Okay.
I know some people are going to try to catch the replay, and that way we can get started. People have been keeping them to about 30 minutes, and so
I'm gonna try my best. You can give me little signals and be like, if I get really going.
Okay. All right.
Let's do it. You want to do the facial stuff first?
Yeah, let's do face first.
Okay. So, use my hat here. So if you have coconut oil, you can use it. If you don't have coconut oil, you can totally do this without coconut oil. I don't have coconut oil today. Whenever you're starting with your allergy massage, which is basically like we're gonna drain the face, you're gonna activate the lymph nodes underneath your clavicle first because that's where we want it all to drain to. So think of these as like your big deportation centers. So that's what's gonna help clear it out of the body, all that gunk. So these guys have to be really awake before we start draining everything down. So you're just gonna make and they can be really light. You're just gonna make little circles all along your clavicle, like right underneath the bone. If any of this is sore or tender, that's a good indication that your lymph nodes are overloaded. You might be dehydrated. You might be feeling a little under the weather. Your allergies might have kicked up to a degree where your body can't get rid of what it needs to get rid of as fast as it should be able to. So that if any of that is happening, like if it's sore, tender, uncomfortable, just kind of note that could just be like your system's a little more overloaded than you realized. And that is also a good indication of whether or not you are primed for infection. So if you could have sinus infections regularly, or if you have bronchitis, or if you get those itises around allergy season a lot, these are going to be really tender. So you don't always have to go in to out. You can go out to in as well. Just gonna spend a couple minutes there. And obviously, like the more you're upright, the more gravity's helping you, but you don't have to be upright to do this. You can be laying down, either or. Okay, and then you're gonna do the same thing to the lymph nodes that are up underneath your ears. So you've got lymph nodes that drain kind of like this. So you're gonna just make little circles here. And work your way down, being really gentle with this part of the neck because there's not a whole lot of flesh here, so it can get kind of tender. And then you can kind of make sweeping motions. So the lymph nodes lie really, really close to the surface of the skin, so you don't have to put a lot of pressure into any of this. I mean, if pressure feels good and you want to push on it, fine. But if you don't want to, then that's fine too. And then we're going to move the ears around a little bit. So you can pinch and twist and just kind of roll your ears around. This feels really good if you have a sinus infection or if you're having allergy issues. It just feels nice. And we're just kind of like rolling them in circles. And then you're going to start from your nose and work your way out. And you're just going to pinch your cheekbone underneath. And then once you get back here to your jaw and you've done it a couple of times, you can kind of roll that in a circle. And you can kind of feel, like for some people, this is going to be really tight through here. And for other people, it's going to feel kind of lumpy. And you can change how your pressure is digging in or what part of your fingers you're using, depending on what feels good. Like for me, my thumbs always feel better right through here. And then you're gonna do your brow line. So you're gonna pinch and pull. And then you do the sinus cavities in the forehead. So you just kind of make little circles. Kind of work your way up to your hairline. And then you can kind of clear those out. And then you do the ones on your chin. So same thing, just pinch and pull. And kind of clear it out. That's it. You just do that a shit ton of times, and then eventually you'll feel it all kind of drain out. You can't overdo that, honestly. I mean, your hands will get tired long before you actually do any damage to yourself. Like you can do that as much or as little as you want. Usually, like if I'm sick or I'm having like any kind of sinus issues, like in the springtime or in the fall, I'll do it at least twice a day. And between that and then practicing nasal breathing and making sure that is the primary way I'm getting oxygen, generally speaking, does the trick, and I don't have those issues anymore. But yeah, okay. So any questions on that?
I like it. Makes me feel like I'm gonna go to sleep.
Good stuff, right? All right. So I had requests on hips, glutes, spine. So I thought we would go over that, as long as no one else has anything else that they are they kind of want to pipe in about. So when you're working or you're wanting to do self-massage work to glutes and spine, obviously it's really hard for you to get your hands on. So we'll do a little bit of hand work, but mostly you're going to use the ground to kind of massage those areas, because that's going to effectively just work better, because you can access it more, and you're not twisting your arms and twisting your shoulders around to try and get to your bum. So I'm going to put you guys on the tripod. I'm going to pick it up. You can see me rolling around the ground. Now, at this point, I can kind of sort of see the screen, but not really. So if you can't see me, just say so. So you're just going to sit on the ground. You can sit with your feet up, or you can sit with them down for this first part. And we're just going to take your fist, which you're going to put your thumb on the side of your fist. You're going to make a soft fist, so it's not going to be really tight. It's going to be nice and soft. And you're going to find your hip bone, and then you're going to go slightly below that into that little indentation. And you're gonna put your fist into that indentation on either side, and you're gonna rock your fist in. So this is actually your TFL, which is attached to your IT band. So if you are a runner, this is going to be very tender. So how much pressure or how little pressure you use completely depends on kind of whether or not it feels good. And then you can try rolling your fist. And then if that feels good, you're going to roll your fist. And if you have the mobility to do it, you're going to roll your fists until you get to the back. And you can kind of find those spots. And all you're doing is you're finding that bony hip crest and you're working directly underneath of it. So you're working the attachment points of those glute muscles.
Tori, I didn't feel anything until I started rocking, and then I felt like fire.
Yeah. So the rocking just adds some sensation to it, and you can also kind of get into the nooks and crannies then, because as your spine moves, that will light up that nervous system a little bit more, and your brain will kind of make you a little more aware of what's going on back there, and will kind of let you know what feels good and what doesn't feel good. Just kind of adds another sensation. So the other thing that you can do to address it from the other side is you can lift your leg, and you're gonna address it from the hamstring now. So you're gonna take your hands and you're gonna lock them together, and you're just gonna pull and kind of roll up. If you have really tight hamstrings, this feels delightful. Try to keep your leg as soft as possible and use your arms to kind of move it around. And then if that feels comfortable, you can do it with your leg further out. It's just a little bit harder because you don't want to like really round your back, but obviously you're going to round to an extent. And then you can kind of roll your leg back and forth. You're just trying to get into those attachment points to see what's sticky and what's not sticky. Okay, so if I'm doing anything like on this part of the spine, I usually don't use my hands because it's really hard to like get your hands up in that area. I mean, if you have a partner who's willing to do it, then awesome. But if you're doing it by yourself, it's kind of difficult. So that's usually when I start to use the ground and make it my friend. So you're gonna lay down. Oh, the sun's in my face now. This is fun. All right, so you're gonna lay down, and I usually put my hands on my belly, but obviously if you don't necessarily want to do it, that's fine. And you're just gonna start playing with tilting your pelvis and kind of pushing your low back into the ground, and then doing it from different angles. So if you guys can see, I'm pushing up, so I'm kind of tilting forward, tilting back, or tilting to the side, or making circles. You can go the other way. It's literally going to feel like you're giving your back a massage because you're pushing it into the ground so much. And you can kind of make it more exaggerated. You want to make it more exaggerated. And then usually I'll start going into some spinal twists. So when you're doing spinal twists, every time you come back to neutral, push your low back into the ground. So I'm breathing the whole time, and as I twist, obviously I've got to let my core go so that I can fall into the stretch. But then as I come back to the middle, I'm always kind of regrounding into the floor. You know, keep your knees together and let your hips fall to one side, and then grounding towards the middle. And then letting your hips fall to the other side, grounding in the middle. You're just gonna kind of repeat that pattern. This is a really nice kind of neurological reset for your spine as well. It's also a precursor for rolling. So when we do rolling exercises, they're designed to kind of help the nervous system kind of reset and come back to like a happy, calm state. It really reinforces that parasympathetic rest and right digest state. And one of the first things that we teach is how to windshield wiper roll, which is what this is. So you're just learning how to ground and then stretch. And it just feels delightful. If you find that your knees do not hit the ground, stick some pillows on either side of you so that you have a target to hit, because you don't want to still kind of be holding on with your core at the end of the stretch. You want everything to kind of just let go. So you can kind of play with that and see which is easier. What was the other one I was gonna say? So depending on what part of the spine is feeling tight or is feeling like it needs to be stretched, we'll also start doing some like twisting drills to try to help stretch it out. So once you've done the windshield wipers, which is what we just did, we'll kind of do some rolling that will also feel nice. Okay, so once you've done the spinal twist, then, and I'm sure all of you have done this because this is a pretty instinctual one where you just kind of rock up and down. Kind of make your back into a C and you roll up and down. And you can play with speed. So the slower you go, the more you're going to feel it in your nooks and crannies. And the faster you go, the more you're going to kind of use momentum to help you pull up and pull back down. So how's everybody doing with that? Good, I'm liking all the rocking. Feel good?
Yeah.
Good. So now we're gonna do some twists. So the twists are just to help reinforce that spinal rotation. The more you can kind of make the spine happy and allow it to kind of rotate in a really relaxed position, the more that like stiffening sensation will go away. So you're gonna start in your legs out, seated up position again. And very softly, meaning like with as little effort as possible, you're gonna roll to the side, almost like in a push up, and then you're gonna push yourself back up to your seated position and then roll to the other side. Your legs are kind of dead weight and you're just kind of letting your torso rotate and shift.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, I feel myself snap, crackling, and popping.
Yes. That's good. It's like you're giving yourself an adjustment.
Yeah. Hey, Torie.
Yes, ma'am.
After this is over, if you could hit me up on the nasal breathing thing, because I decided that's going to be my personal physical goal.
Yes, I love it.
Yeah. And I'm trying to make sure that I get the right Bolt score.
Yes, I got you. Okay, I'll hit you up. All right. So, how's everybody feeling? The spine is feeling a little yummy.
Yeah.
Good.
Torie, you froze, I think. Torie. She froze.
Honestly, those are like, and just that being in that hinge position, like really stiffen things up. Those will fix that.
Surprisingly good.
What?
I said my back wasn't really that, I didn't think it was that sore, but that felt really good.
Yeah. Trying to think. You can make those more exaggerated. Like if you wanted to take it further, you could, but those are like the easy entry ones. And honestly, like the back is one of the harder places to self massage. So like I said, rolling into the ground is going to be your friend. In my opinion, it's a lot more beneficial than rolling on a roller because you are simulating what you want your spine to be able to do in real movement. So you're kind of getting both benefit. You're neurologically getting benefit from it, but then also kind of working out the nooks and crannies. Whereas on the roller, real life won't simulate that movement. And so like it has nowhere to go. It's not bad. It just doesn't have anywhere to go. But yeah, so those are my ones for the back. Does anybody else? I mean, like I'm doing my best trying not to make it like Torie goes into geek mode again.
I think it's good to have like 2 or 3 each time because each time we come back, we just learn a couple more. So, what about something for hands, like or for? Maybe we could finish with something like that because my hands are always so sore.
So, hands are fun because most of the time, what it really boils down to is your wrist. Yes, can be in your fingers, especially if you're doing a lot of grip work, but most of the time you can help that even more with added wrist mobility. So when we work on the hands, and I'm gonna have to change where I've got my camera where you can see me. Move on my hand. I got this tripod thing and I'm seriously loving it. Okay, so, all right, now you can see my hands.
Yeah.
All right, so when you work on the hands, especially if they're really sore, start out with your typical massage stuff, and then we progress it to loaded flexibility, and that will just kind of help extend the life cycle of the manual work. So you can hook pinky into that last divot, and then your hand is going to look like this. And so whatever finger you hooked, you're going to kind of stick that hand underneath, and then you're going to use your thumb. Well, I guess you can do it this way too. Doesn't really matter. You can stick your thumb into that fleshy part of your other thumb. This feels awesome for most people. So the hand that's being pushed on is as relaxed as you can make it, and the other hand is obviously doing all of the work. And then you can move that thumb and push on some other parts. So this is like your entry level, because the hand that you're working on is really passive, and you're grounded into the floor, meaning like your hand is resting on the floor, and so like you have something to push into. So if your hands are really exhausted from grip work, this is where you're going to start, and then you're going to move from this to stretching. So your hand's going to go the opposite direction, and then you're going to hook your finger underneath that knuckle, and you're going to pull, and you're going to hook under that first knuckle and pull. The more weight you have on your wrist when you do this, the more intense that pull is going to be, because that changes the angle that your wrist is at. So if you want less pressure, kind of back off so that the angle of your wrist is less severe. More severe is going to create a bigger pull. All right, so then you're gonna, once you've pulled your fingers individually, you're gonna splay your hands and kind of take the tip of your fingers and push them into the ground, so you kind of get that whitening effect on like the tip of your fingernails. And then you're just gonna rock your forearm over your wrist and then back. At this point, we have no other weight on it. It's just the weight of the actual arm. So you get a good indication of how much give is actually in your wrist, and you're teaching your fingers how to grip the ground and engage even when the wrist is being flexed, which is important for your push-ups and your planks and basically anything that requires you to have your hands on the ground. Your fingers should kind of reflexively grab the ground and grip. All right, now we've gotten through all of that and we're still alive. Everybody's still good. The next thing you're gonna do is you're gonna add weight to that drill so that you are forcing the wrist a little bit further open. And I say forcing is not the right word, but you're gonna add increased load to that wrist. The cautionary tale I will give for this is this only works if you have figured out how to grip the ground with your fingers. So if that drill that we just did wasn't super easy for you, practice it more before you go on to the next thing, because you need that reflexive kind of gripping of the ground in order for this to work well. Otherwise, you're just kind of working against yourself. Okay, so everybody, your hands are gonna go out in front of you, and you're gonna simulate that little grip sensation, and you're gonna keep your feet kind of flat. So you're kind of in that child's pose position, and then you're just gonna rock your shoulders over your wrist and come back. You're gonna feel this in your wrists and in your forearms.
Wow.
How's that feel?
I'm very tight in my wrists.
So this gives you a really good indication of whether or not you are actually able to get down in correct push-up position. Also, because if you can't rock your shoulders over your wrists, the odds are really good that your shoulder is actually moving not in alignment in order to get that push-up correct. Does that make sense? Like your wrist is not able to have the flexibility it needs, and so your shoulder will compensate or your elbow will compensate. So
Right.
You can also play with this drill elbows out or elbows facing each other. You can try it both ways and see what happens. For some people, elbows out is actually going to feel easier, but it's a less stable position for your shoulder. But just because it's less stable doesn't mean you don't train it, because inevitably at some point, if your elbows do that naturally, they will try and do that when you are overtired. So you're better off training stability in both ranges, just for safety purposes. Yeah, so that's one of my favorite ones for building wrist strength. And if you're building wrist strength, obviously if you're building wrist mobility, you're building wrist strength. So you're working on your grip, but then you're also working on that range of motion. Yeah, so stretch the finger, massage, stretch the fingers, and then build that wrist range, and that will significantly decrease the amount of stress you have on your wrists when you're doing CrossFit workouts or HIIT workouts or whatever else.
Like it.
Good.
Awesome. Well, that's right at 30 minutes, Torie. You nailed it today.
I finally did it.
This is really good, and I know a bunch of people wanted to catch the replay, and so I hope they do, because you hit some really good ones, and I've got some that I need to show my mom.
Good.
So Torie, you are the best, and I love the setting for this. Like, you out in your pasture just seems right.
At first I was like, oh, I'm gonna try and make it back to the studio, and then I was like, screw it, that's just not gonna happen. We're just gonna do it outside, and that's totally fine.
Yeah, no, it's really good.
Good. I'm glad you guys enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Definitely.
Teleport there and hang out with you on your
I know.
pasture.
Anybody that's close that wants to hang out, though, you're more than welcome. As you can see, we have tons of space here. So
Yeah, it looks amazing.
Where are you, Torie?
I'm in Southern Maryland.
Okay, down by my sister Molly.
Yeah. So we're like the farm itself is in Leonardtown, but I actually live over in Leslie. So my studio's in Solomons.
Okay.
So I kind of bebop between the two. And my hair did not great today.
That's okay.
Um,
You are the best. Thank you.
you're
Thank
so
you very
welcome.
much.
I'm glad everybody got to come, and hit me up if you guys need anything else or if you have questions.
Yep. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
Bye, Torie.
Bye.
Bye.